How you doing? My name is Michael Carroll, and I run a company called Charlotte's Webb. Appreciate it. Pittsburgh, born and bred here. And I want to talk about this thinking around the humanization of brand design. And not just brand design, but designing communities, designing humans. And what does that train of thought lead us to? And how authenticity is the new brand design. Once again, I run a company called Charlotte's Webb. It's a marketing, digital consulting, traditional marketing, PR, produced content, and underproduced content. What we specialize in? What we don't specialize in, what we do, is brand design. And for brand design, I go to one of my mentors. And I went to my mentor and he said, Mike, what is this logo? Tell me what this logo says. And I said, well, it's a marketing company. He says, what I see is 3 people in the middle of a spider web about to be eaten. And I told him the story behind it, and then I looked at it and I said, you know what, he's right. So when I can afford his fee, I'm gonna get this changed, right? But when I started thinking about what is brand and what that means to us, I started thinking about this concept around, in 2025, how the brand is living. Companies used to build brands like fortresses. Identity was dictated from the boardroom down. This was an industrialized mindset. Control the narrative and you control perception. But that has started to change. Over the last 10 years, and during a global pandemic, that control has started to collapse. The internet has dismantled one-way communication. Now identity is participatory. Every customer, employee, and creative has their own voice. The brand manual has been replaced by the brand moment. And this shift is happening right in front of our eyes where we're going from fonts to faces. Who do we go to when we want to learn about a brand? Do we search a logo or do we ask a friend? This is a real thinking that we need to start taking when we're approaching brand design. And when people discover new brands today, they follow personalities. They don't follow corporations. Authenticity has replaced design as the foundation of trust. And this is the new frontier. It's the organizing principle of brand identity. It breaks down the bureaucracy. It's not a strategy you sign off on anymore. It's a culture that's consistently changing, and we live through it. As we live through this culture, we have to start thinking beyond the logo. Across Fortune 500 and high-growth startup ecosystems, 60 to 70% of companies relied on some stage on a founder's personal brand. Duh, we've seen all the startup shows. We watch all the startup movies. We know how important a founder's personal brand and stability is to raising funds. And if they're a little off, the investors go back and say, hey, this is not working. We don't trust this guy, right? Even B2B examples like Salesforce and Zoom use personal storytelling to humanize abstract tech. You use your brand to raise capital, to signal credibility to the market, to anchor brand identity until your institution's brand is self-sustaining. When you look at the current ecosystem in 2025, companies that are driven by personal brand at one stage or another is worth $19 trillion. Companies that are non-personal brand driven at one stage or another is worth $6 trillion. And we have an example of how brand voices have played a major role in how companies and organizations are communicating to their end consumer. This is what they call brand in motion. And this campaign, as many of these people in this room have heard of, leaned into the jeans/gene pun in an ad when Sydney Sweeney says, genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. And my genes are blue. This instantly started a huge backlash online. In AP coverage of the company's response, American Eagle noted the campaign was always about the genes, but admitted they used clever and more provocative language, and it was definitely going to push buttons. They knew what they were doing. One Redditor said, using blonde, blue-eyed white person declaring that they have good genes is weird and could be construed as saying, white people have better genes. It's very interesting when you think about this because brand is about using cultural legitimacy and how fragile it is. Using a celebrity with a specific look and a genetic pun invites accusations. The response is also a part of the identity. How American Eagle responded dictated how their brand will be consumed. But the funniest thing about this is backlash and chaos doesn't always kill performance. In quarter two, America's Eagles seen their stocks raise by 25% in the best quarter they had in the last couple years. So the chaos of that conversation and not understanding cultural voices can have an immediate backlash, but also could play to your advantage. This idea around culture and it being the new brand identity and how brand building isn't about building logos, and it isn't about color palettes. It's about understanding people, culture, and language. Identity no longer lives in that brand book, and how different communities communicate, create, and connect in the physical realm and in the digital realm in real time matters. We have shifted from design systems to cultural systems. We've moved, and a logo might be introduced by your brand, but culture decides whether it stays. To succeed, brands must develop cultural literacy and the ability to read those spaces and understand emotional tone. Cultural currency has become brand currency. Brand equity used to be measured in awareness and impressions. Now it's measured in that currency, and real-time participation matters. It is a new brand strategy. Culture moves too fast to be stagnant. The new brand playbook is built on being responsive, being adaptable, and having empathy. And God damn it, be a human. If you want to build a company, you got to be a human. When we look at examples of like this, it's all across the globe. We look at Duolingo, look at the results on how they've been able to acquire a mass consumer base using their chaotic and chaos-infringed TikToks to connect with their audience. They've seen massive growth from 50,000 TikTok followers to 7.2 million in 2 years, just by being a human being in the room. 70 million plus likes and billions of views across posts, and a reported 13% spike in daily active users. We look at Wendy's and how they use humor to become a strategy. When they were roasting people on TikTok, that roast, someone laughed, it was crazy, right? They be cooking, they say, McDonald's, you're cooked. During these roasting sessions, they humanized their brand, and they also grew their following by a substantial amount. They raised their bottom line 7% in same growth store revenue. Their Twitter followers went from 1 million to 4 million, and they earned 250,000 direct replies. No paid ads, no paid spending over the course of the campaign. You cannot buy that engagement. We looked at the downfall of Balenciaga and how they had the campaign with the teddy bears with the bondage. Somebody had to have been in that room and said, this is not working, right? And the result of that, several luxury brands temporarily pulled Balenciaga listings. In fact, the parent company stock went down by 4%. Nobody's reading the room. We're designing from a place of ego. We're communicating from a place of ego. We have to meet our consumers and our customers and the people that we love, care for, and serve where they're at. And we also see OceanGate. And OceanGate was a tragedy where people were going to try and see the Titanic, and their response to this tragedy didn't have any type of empathy. They responded late. They responded without any feelings or being apologetic, and it led to the expeditions being suspended indefinitely. And the cultural shorthand for disaster now is, I'm pulling an OceanGate. It's crazy. We have to start thinking about reading the room and the future of brand identity. Reading the room used to mean social tag. The internet turned the world into one giant room, billions of people, millions of conversations, all happening at once. In that room, brands are guests, not hosts, and to belong, they must listen before they speak. Emotional intelligence is the new market research. I call this intentional doom scrolling. Go out in that room and listen. That's where the research is. How are they talking? How are they speaking? What do they listen to? What do they wear? What is the psychographics over the demographics? It matters. What is the tone? What is the timing? What is the temperature? What is the translation of the culture that you serve? Let's do it without ego. The skill set of the future brand is market research equals cultural intelligence. Brand consistency equals contextual adaptability. Visual identity equals linguistic identity. PR management means real-time empathy. And audience segmentation means community participation. Build a room-ready brand. Listen before you launch. Humanize the approval process. Embed voices internally. Respond in human time. Not real time, human time. We want to think about audience development, and human design is the new brand design. If you get the spokesperson's voice wrong, even the strongest brand symbols could lose meaning. If you get the spokesperson's voice right, you become aligned, you become trusted with the end consumer. Character development and content strategy needs to start as brand assets. The character of a brand or founder or team becomes a gateway, and people connect to people. Breadcrumb marketing, let the consumer be invested in what you have going on with your company, with your organization, with your brand. And this drives the implications for the new brand design process. Start early with audience mapping. Humanization is brand identity. People are tired of being converted into consumers for commodities. America is the #1 consumer nation in the world, and it's breaking. Segmentation is real, not because of the internet, but because people are tired of being sold to. And the rebellion is niche marketing and shared beliefs within community. I'm sorry, the internet is not the problem. The internet is a mirror. We're the problem. I want to acknowledge the incredible brand designers and world builders in this room. My goal is not to alienate the decades of work you have all accomplished that will eventually lead to centuries of lived experiences. I only hope that this talk will encourage you to humanize this process, to think and breathe and design from a perspective of a funnel not leading to a consumer, but leading to a human that lives and breathes as you do. How will your wives and husbands experience this brand? How will your son ponder when he engages in this brand? How do this brand design make you feel? Do you do it for people, or do you do it for yourself? Are we architects of the world, or does the world ultimately drive us? Can we live in that small and indistinguishable place in the middle that drives the most impact? I have about a minute here, so she's on my ass. So right here is a picture of myself, my mother, my brother, my stepbrother, and my daughter, and my niece. On the summer of 2013, I planned to move to Houston with my family. My daughter was in Pittsburgh. I lived in Philadelphia. I wanted to be a real dad. So I was going to move her from Pittsburgh, and we were going to move down to Houston where my mother lived at. So the goal was to pick her up in Pittsburgh, go to my sister's wedding in Columbus, and from Columbus, my entire family and my mother was going to travel down to Houston. We get to Columbus, and we're waiting for my mom, and my mom's late. She's not answering the phone. We kept calling. The night before the wedding, around 9 or 10 o'clock, we get a call that unfortunately she passed away. And she was hit by a semi-tractor going 90 miles an hour, and the car instantly exploded. With her, my stepbrother, and my stepfather in the car. They thought about canceling the wedding, but we continued on, and after the wedding, we packed our stuff. I went back to Pittsburgh. My daughter, I looked her in the eyes and I said, one day, I will be a real father to you. I have to go back and rebuild my life. And I did that. And the only way through the depression of losing my mother was helping people through my marketing journey. So, when I look at this logo, it does still fucking suck. But my mother's name was Charlotte Webb. And she married a man by the name of Lavorice Webb. And their son was Lavorice Webb Jr. And those three people can mean community, they can mean trust, they can mean connection. But those three people there are the people I lost. That is my time. My name is Michael Carroll. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll take this.
Yeah.
That was awesome.